Hi, it's Angela with the Mount Airy Public Library. I'm here with storyteller Brack Llewellyn, and we have another fairy tale in our midst. This story is going to be The Fisherman and His Wife, and I can't wait to hear it. Let's get started.
All right. Everyone gather round close and invite family if they're there to come listen as well. I need you to listen with both ears, right? And most importantly, turn on that old imagination. So when the words I speak fly through the air, they can form pictures in that wonderful mind of yours. This is the story, as the name tells you, about a fisherman and his wife. They lived in a small, humble home, much like this one, near the water. The fisherman made his living by catching fish. One day he was doing just that, and he caught a most unusual fish. It was a large fish and had very bright eyes, and it spoke to the fisherman. It spoke to him, telling him that he was a magical fish. He had once been a prince, changed to a fish, and he hoped that the fisherman would let him go. And he begged so that the fisherman took pity on him and did release him back into the water. The fisherman went home and, of course, told his wife about this unusual thing that had happened to him. And his wife said, "Well, since he's a magical fish, why didn't you get him to grant a wish for us? You should have extracted a wish from him." And the fisherman said, "Well, I never thought of that." She said, "Well, go back and get a wish from this magical fish. He owes you that." "Well, what shall I wish for?" said the fisherman. And his wife said, she said, "Well, you know, I'm just not very happy. We live in this plain old house by the water. We're so poor. I wish I had more gold than anyone in the entire village." So the fisherman went back to the water's edge. This time, the water, instead of being nice and calm as it usually was sort of dark and roiling. And the fisherman looked out over the water and said, "Oh, hear me, Master Fish, will you come and grant my wife's wish?" And sure enough, the fish appeared. And the fish said to the fisherman, "I know what wish your wife wants. It's already been granted. Go home." The fisherman went back to his humble little house, and as soon as he walked in, he saw his wife sitting there, surrounded by bags of gold coins, richer than anyone in the entire village. "Well," said the fisherman, "surely that makes you happy." And his wife said, "Well, maybe. It's nice to have all this money." But within a day, she came back to her husband and said, "You know, I don't want just all the gold in the village. I want more gold than anyone in the entire kingdom. Go back to the water, find that fish, and have that wish granted." So the fisherman went back to the water's edge and called out, "Oh, hear me, Master Fish. Come and grant my wife's next wish." And the fish appeared, and he already knew what the fisherman wanted. He told him that the wish had been granted and he should go home. When the fisherman returned to his humble cottage, he walked inside and found his wife surrounded an entire room full of bags of gold coins, more gold than anyone had ever seen in one place. Surely she was now richer than anyone in the kingdom. And the fisherman thought, well, surely she will now be happy. But the very next day she came back to her husband and said, "What's the point of having all this gold if we don't have a fine house? I'm tired of living in this little cold shack by the water. I want to wish for the finest home in the kingdom, up on a huge high hill. Go tell the fish that's my next wish." The fisherman did as he was asked. He went back to the water's edge and called out, "Oh, hear me, Master Fish. Come and grant my wife's next wish." The fish appeared and told the fisherman that the wish had already been granted, and go home. But this time when the fisherman returned home, the little shack was gone. High up on a hill nearby stood the most magnificent house the fisherman had ever seen. Tall and 2 stories, and great windows and great sashes and big oaken doors and much finery, and just the most magnificent house you can imagine. And the fisherman walked inside this new house and saw his wife sitting there with her gold and said, "Well, I'm sure you're now quite happy." And his wife said, "Well, I may be." But within a day or so, she came back to her husband. She said to him, "What's the point of having all this gold in this fine house if we can't show it off? I want fine friends. I want rich and impressive people to come to our house so I can show off the house and all our riches. So the fisherman went back to the water's edge, found the fish once again, calling out, "Oh, hear me, Master Fish. Come and grant my wife's next wish." The fish appeared and said, "It's already been granted. Go back to your fine home," which the fisherman did. And as he approached it, he saw a long line of very finely dressed people coming in and out, all obviously very rich and very important people, and his wife standing in the midst, greeting and speaking to each of them. Well, these weren't exactly the fisherman's kind of people, so he retreated to his workshop until they were gone. Then he went to his wife and said, "Well, you have all your riches now and this beautiful home and all these impressive friends. I'm sure you're happy now." But she wasn't. Every day or so she would come back to her husband wanting another wish. Fine furniture, lavish jewelry, statues, rare paintings, everything she could think of. And each time the fisherman would go back to the water's edge and call for the fish, and the fish would grant the wish. Days went on, and the wife's finery increased. But one day she came to her husband and said, "I'm just not happy. It's not enough. I've thought about it, and you know what I wish for? I wish I had power over the earth and the heavens. That's what I want." And the fisherman was shocked. He said, "No, I don't think that's a proper thing to wish for. Not for a person." She said, "Never mind. Go find the fish. Tell the fish that's what I want. That's my last wish." So the fisherman reluctantly went back to the water's edge and called out, "Oh, hear me, Master Fish. Come and grant my wife's last wish." And the fish did appear. But he told the fisherman, "I cannot grant this wish. It is not right that any person have power over the earth and the heavens. However, I have granted your wife one last wish, and now I think she may be happy at last." And with that the fish swam away, and the waters that had been rough and roiling suddenly calmed. The fisherman went back looking for his fine house on the hill, but it was gone. The little shack had returned, and when he went inside, all the fine furniture was gone, and all the gold, and all the paintings, and all the statues, and all the fancy people. But there sat his wife, looking at him with a little smile on her face. And he said to her, I thought you'd be angry. The fish has obviously taken away all the things you wished for. I thought you'd be very upset and angry." And he sat down next to her, and she said, "No, I think for the first time in a long time, I am truly happy." And with that she put her head on her husband's shoulder, and they sat there the longest time. Because I think the fisherman's wife learned something that I learned from this story as well. Things don't make you happy. Possessions don't make you happy. Having fine friends does not make you happy. Gold does not make you happy. Real happiness comes from inside you. That's the story of the fisherman and his wife. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you.